For most people, prenups aren't a big deal, but for some reason, OP's sister thinks that a prenup is a huge deal in today's story. G'day there guys, it's your main man Markee, and welcome back to another episode of r/Am I the Asshole. Now if you love today's content, I want you to sit back, relax, and enjoy. Thank you. Am I the asshole for insisting my sister gets a prenuptial agreement? My sister and I are property investors who own 6 investment properties together. I know how the internet feels about evil landlords, so spare me that, please. That is not why I'm here. We started with one house to live in, then bought lots of cheap houses and flipped them for rental income. We're doing well financially because of said houses. My sister is getting married. Wedding is later this year, pandemonium dependent. I'm helping her plan, and we were going through a to-do list, seeing what's left to be done. She mentioned caterers, venue, invites, etc., and asked if she'd forgotten anything. And I said yes. Prenup. And we both sang, "We want prenup, yeah!" like the Kanye song, and then laughed. She moved on to the next item without actually addressing it. I leave it for then, and we go our separate ways. I text her later in the evening and say, "Hey, my friend used a really good lawyer to draw her prenup up, so let me know if you want me to ask her for deets." She replies she thought I was joking, and she's not asking her husband to sign a prenup. I replied I wasn't joking, and I must insist he signs one. She calls and says it's not my place to insist. I say it is when our assets are tied together. She asks me if I'm trying to say something about her future husband. I say I'm trying to be realistic and smart, then it all goes to hell. She starts yelling at me about being rude, jinxing her marriage before it began, yada yada yada. I say either she gets a prenup or we transfer all property to my name and I get one if I ever get married, and then I hang up. I've been bombarded by family saying her future husband is a good guy who would never do that if they separated. Well, if you guys needed a laugh, there's your joke of the day. He sent me a text admonishing me for hurting my sister and calling him a gold digger. He thought I liked him. I'm not backing down on this. Am I the asshole for how I went about it or wanting one? And edit to add, this has gotten bigger than I anticipated. Thank you for your input and comments. Delivery wasn't the best, I concede. I'll be getting in touch with a conveyancing solicitor soon to help protect our assets. OP has offered the following explanation for why they think they might be the asshole. Because my sister is upset and I'm not budging. People think I hate her fiancé and don't approve. That is not the case. I'm just being smart, but people have gotten into such a kerfuffle, it's making me wonder if I'm the asshole. Now in the comments, Kmat says, "No assholes here, but have you seen a lawyer about your options though? Surely there's some agreement you and your sister could sign that would at least protect your half of things. You are not the first person whose business partner has gotten married." And OP replies, "I'll look into it, thank you." And someone replies to that, "Yeah, depending on country and state, I'm fairly certain an income or investments before marriage or dating belongs to the original owners and investors and not the spouse. But I'm not a lawyer, so don't take my word for it." And someone replies to that, "But as property flippers, there's new properties being bought during the marriage. The siblings need to move the business assets to an LLC, and it would also allow them to determine what happens when one of them wants out of the business or dies." Blacks in Flux says, "If you want to be smart with your business, be smart with your business. A prenup for someone else's marriage isn't necessary. Talk to a business lawyer about getting paperwork written up that states that if she gets divorced, your portion of the profits don't get touched, or however it needs to be worded to protect the business. Make sure the proper protections are in place for your business instead of demanding your sister do something that is not your decision. You're the asshole." And OP replies to that, "I'll definitely look up the law around this and look into engaging a lawyer. Just don't want to further drive a wedge between us." So, you wanted to make sure that your sister and her husband had a legal agreement, but you don't want a legal agreement with her. OP replies to that, "When did I say I don't want a legal agreement with her? You said that you don't want to drive a wedge, and this entire post is about how them not signing a prenup would affect you and your shared properties, which means that you and your sister don't have anything official drawn up that protects you." And OP replies, "I don't have anything against the many suggestions to create a contract and business of some sort that protects our assets, nor did I mean to imply that I did." I think you're still overstepping by talking about protecting our assets. You get to protect your assets, and she gets to do with hers what she sees fit. If she wants the laws of marriage to determine what happens to her assets in any event, then that's her decision, not yours. And now on to the update. It's been about 6 weeks since everything went down. I need to clarify a few things. I can't afford to buy her out, so that's not an option. She also doesn't want to sell because they are long-term investments for us. It wasn't a case of we each own 50-50 in the properties. Between us, we know that's the case. However, legally, sometimes I own 75% to her 25% and vice versa because of our financial standing at the time that we purchased the properties. I would stand to lose a lot if her marriage went south because some of the more expensive properties she holds more equity in. The properties that have been paid off, we've been able to change the deeds to, but those still mortgaged are that way at the bank's insistence. We have transferred all the properties into a trust. It is a legal protection that outlines how everything is split, including clarifications on who owns how much. It says that spouses are not entitled to anything related to the houses. We've also decided to end our business ventures together. We'll keep managing the properties, but we won't buy any more together for the sake of the relationship. We are doing okay. Still not as it were, but that is to be expected, I guess. Her husband-to-be is still withdrawn around me, but honestly, I don't care. Their wedding is going ahead as planned later this year, hopefully. And thanks to all who offered advice. The laws in my country are a little different, but we found a solution. Update over, short and sweet. Now in the comments, Accomplished Son asks, I'm curious. This protects you and your sister if your marriages go south, but what if your sister has kids and then dies? Is there a provision for her husband and kids to benefit from her portion of the partnership? And OP replies, the children inherit her share of the houses under guardian of a lawyer until they're of age. Someone else says, I'm glad that you managed to work it out. I have a hard time understanding the problem of signing a prenup. If their relationship is as sturdy as they claim, I would think that it could withstand signing a piece of paper. If it's not, one is probably a good idea. I would never get married without a prenup. If it goes south, I'm leaving with what I came in with. Nothing more, nothing less. You truly never know how a person might change. Hell, they could suffer a brain injury and turn into a completely different person. I'm still leaving with my house, my money, and my dog. I was completely upfront with my partner on the debt I owe, and was the one who told him how he could be on the hook if we got married. I also strongly suggested a prenup for us if it doesn't work out. You go in having these hard but honest conversations because as someone I love, I want what is best for them. My dad secretly developed brain cancer, screwed around with my family's money, and then died. 5 years later, my widowed mother has dug herself out of the massive debt that my dad left her in, although she certainly won't be retiring at a normal retirement age. She was a hard-working, money-savvy person, and it all went down the drain in a few short years because my dad gradually lost his sense. I could see getting a prenup to prevent something like this from happening to myself or to my future spouse. Most prenups wouldn't prevent that. Oh god. I'm so glad you stood your ground. My husband was in a partnership with 2 partners, and when one partner divorced, his wife got half of her husband's stake in the business. It was such a crap show. It is still a crap show, but not because of her. No one wants to be in the business anymore, and they're in the process of closing down. But the one partner that got divorced is adamant that he doesn't want to let go of the business. It's a huge mess. So good on you for protecting your half and your future. Ugh, I hate the crap about how it's mistrust to get a prenup. It's common sense, and in your case, it's not just your sister's property and wealth at risk. People change, especially if there's a divorce. My ex has done things that absolutely have shocked me since I filed for divorce. The money was all mostly his, from work. We were both dead broke students when we got together, but he's treated our kids like crap. There's no doubt in my mind whatsoever if I had had any assets before we married, he would have taken everything he could get, just to be mean, because I wouldn't let him screw anyone he felt like and stay married. He is not the person I married. And if your sister's fiancé really had no interest in your properties, he would sign the prenup. Same for anyone else asked to sign one. I'd sign in a minute if I met someone new that had assets to protect without feeling at all insulted. 50% or more of marriages end in divorce no matter how much in love people think they are when they say their vows. It's just life, and they need to grow up. Our next post is by user AngleAussie, titled, "Am I the arsehole for not giving my room to my foster sister even if it'd make life easier for my mother? Hey Reddit, I, 17 male, have lived in the same house since I was 2. When we inherited it from my paternal grandparents, and I've always had the same room. Being so young, I never got to choose my room when we moved in, but honestly I think I got the best one. It's right next to the garden, close enough to the bathroom that I don't wake anyone, and there's enough space for my bed and a desk. However, my mother wants me to move out to give the room to my foster sister D, 9 female. To be clear, D has a room. My biological sisters A and B have moved out, and while A's room has been turned into a new office space since we're working from home, D has been given B's old room. It's a little smaller than mine, but there's still more than enough room for her to put all of her belongings, and my mother has let her paint it whatever color she wants, although it's not perfect. D has recently been complaining that the room is too cold at night and that she struggles to sleep. My mother has offered her additional blankets, but they don't seem to help. So my mother has decided that she wants to move D to my side of the house, and consequently me into D/B's room. I, however, do not want to move. D is only here temporarily, so it'll be a lot of hassle to move my things out of my room and back in whenever she leaves again. Also, my mother and her social worker allow D to scribble on the walls in crayon, and I don't want my bedroom covered in poorly drawn cats and fish. My mother is unhappy that I'm unwilling to move, which I understand as she has to put up with D's complaining, but I don't think that I should have to sacrifice my room. B came over for a barbecue, and she and my mother lectured me on my selfishness, and apparently while I was stopping D burning herself on the barbecue while getting food, they were complaining about me and my attitude. I understand that my mother would prefer I agree to swap rooms, but I really don't think that's the solution. D has been complaining about a lot of things lately, so I wouldn't be surprised if she's just going through a phase or acting out. B has messaged me a few times to tell me to make life easier for our mother and that it's only temporary. So Reddit, am I the arsehole? OP has offered the following explanation for why they think they might be the arsehole. I may be the arsehole as her complaining is clearly bothering my mother and there aren't many solutions here. Now in the comments, it's Bobby Doe says, not the arsehole. Tell mum to invest in a space heater. This. You can easily get safe space heaters for a decent price, and have it set somewhere that the child doesn't fiddle with it. Most these days have safeties, so that if the kiddo knocks it over, it turns off automatically. If more blankets isn't sufficient, a space heater will do the trick. Shoving the other kid in the cold room doesn't resolve anything, and just enforces that if the kid whines enough, they get to abolish boundaries. If this is a temporary situation, uprooting OP's zone twice over isn't really practical, and if they do it once, how often is their mother going to do this again in the future? Not the arsehole. They even make ones with a thermostat that will shut it off once a room gets to the set temperature. They're awesome. We have these. Our house has poor insulation, and the bedrooms get freezing while the living room, where the thermostat is, stays cozy. Didn't even increase the bills much. Not the arsehole. Changing rooms isn't gonna fix anything. I think you're right that the kid is just dealing with a lot and complaining is part of that. But every little complaint doesn't need to be met. A space heater could help her out just as much without kicking you out of your room if they really want to do anything about the cold. I mean, if she's a foster kid, then she's probably testing this family. I'm not saying testing in a bad way. I think it's pretty natural for a kid who had an unstable early start in life. She's basically trying to see how responsive they will be to her needs, whether they will follow through or let her down, and possibly also finding out that she might be able to get away with quite a lot in a family that is trying to make up for a rough background. aka it's about the bedroom, but it's not about the bedroom. Foster sister is definitely testing the foster parents' boundaries, but the foster parents are also pushing that onto the OP. I think it's fair for OP to say that this is a hard line for them, not the arsehole. And OP replies, yeah, I think it's likely she's testing boundaries. B never had an issue with the room. Cheers. And now on to the update. Hey Reddit, thanks for all the comments and suggestions on my post. I really appreciate it. We looked into it, and although many suggested it, Dee would not have been allowed to have a heater in her room at night, as it is a hazard, and usually she doesn't have an issue in the room until long after she's gone to bed, so it'd be pointless to heat up the room in the day. As someone here pointed out, my room has a door to the garden, and allowing foster children unsupervised access out of the house is never a good idea, and I doubt the social worker would have approved. I did point out my mother's hypocrisy, as many have suggested, at refusing to give up her own room, and she seemed to drop it after that. So many people had suggestions, and I tried to look into all of them. One suggestion was a weighted blanket that someone described to feel like a hug, so we've bought one of those. It was the equivalent of $27, so not a bad find. But unfortunately, that didn't seem to help any more than the other blankets. We also gave her my old hot water bottle. It's got one of those fluffy cases that looks like a penguin. But that didn't work either, and she still didn't want to sleep in her bed at night. However, someone suggested a blanket that looks like a mermaid's tail, so we bought one, and she absolutely loves it. She's had the blanket for 2 nights now, and there's been no complaints, so we're hoping that that has been sorted. Also, in regards to my relationship with Dee, some people commented that I harbored resentment, and I want to make it clear that I do not. I know it's not her fault my mother makes weird decisions on her behalf, and I don't blame her for being fostered. I took a commenter's advice and made a pillow fort with her, and we hung up fairy lights to try to make the room feel more like her own, and I bought her some stickers that she's now covering her headboard with, so she seems to be doing alright. I'll admit that we're not as close as my biological sisters and I, and that perhaps I could make more of an effort, but I have got a lot going on right now, and she doesn't seem to mind. Cheers again, Reddit. And now in the comments. See, this is such a beautiful example of being caring and responsive towards others' needs while maintaining healthy boundaries for yourself. If you had given up your room, you likely would have felt frustrated and resentful, which I don't think would have helped your relationship with Dee. But I love that y'all kept trying to find something that would make Dee feel better. She's lucky to be with such a caring foster family. And OP replies, almost definitely. Although I don't think I'd have blamed Dee as much as I'd blame my mother. Cheers, mate. You seriously have an amazingly mature attitude and perception of this situation. I wish you all the best in this world. And OP says, thank you so much. Someone else says, hey, you could try sealing around the windows in the room too. It can make a huge difference in keeping in heat. Just some white silicone cork into cork gun, super easy and doable. It's made a massive difference in my old ass house. This is a good idea. Also, I was sleeping for a while in a room that had old windows, and the cold just came right through the glass. I got some insulation sheets that goes over the glass, and they really helped keep the heat in. Although with summer right around the bend, it might not be necessary right now. Anyway guys, I think that's where I'm going to end today's video. If you did like it, tell me what you thought about it down in the comments below, and make sure to just interact with everyone in this community. I love each and every one of you that I get to see on a daily basis. And don't forget, if you are a Patreon subscriber, I love you. You're on the screen right now with the YouTube members as well. If you see yourself, give yourself a pat in the back. You guys help me continue this YouTube journey. You keep me going. I see you guys everywhere. I see your messages, and thank you so much for supporting me. I really love every single one of you. But with that all said, I'm going to be signing off now, guys. I hope you have a good day, night, sleep, whatever you're up to, and I'll see you in the next episode. Bye.